Let's hit it.
Hit it.
Looks like it is.
Great. All right, well, welcome to our next release of the MAC V, which is our signature Vietnamese micro lot roast. So today we're launching this. We actually launched it about 24 hours ago, technically, because I didn't want to turn this into a pitch session with former MAC V veteran, and we're just about sold out of it, so it's done what we wanted it to do. So we don't have to spend any time selling coffee. We're just going to spend time talking about what you did in your past. So John Stryker Meyer, aka Tilt, is here, and you were just on the Jocko podcast not too long ago, correct?
Couple months ago, yes, sir.
Couple months ago?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, Jocko's an awesome guy. He's a great friend of the company. He's an awesome person. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, I would jump over, take a listen to that, because
Sure.
How many episodes did you do with it?
Jocko podcast number 180,
Yep.
81, 82, and 86.
Wow. So
And they just interviewed a guy who I served with on episodes of 204, 205. It's all
So-
SOG
all SOG.
with Jocko, and they're best interviews I've ever had in my life.
These are
Except for today.
Oh shoot, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how long this is going to go as far as like our live feed. We're going to jump into a few things, talk to you about your book, talk to you about your past. Check out the coffee. We did a ton of specific tiger stripe and SOG themed items. So if you haven't seen those, check them out. And without further ado, let's get into this coffee. I want to
Well,
see.
but first, I'd just like
Please.
to say, on behalf of the guys that are still alive
Mm-hmm.
that served in MAC V, thank you for honoring that heritage with your coffee.
It's quite literally my pleasure. I've been wanting to do this coffee for probably 5 years.
Really?
And the problem with Vietnamese coffees, there's just not a lot of good Vietnamese coffees.
Right.
And most of it is called Robusta, which is it's really acidic. It's not a very high quality, good tasting coffee. So when we nailed the bag design, which was probably 6 months ago, I think, Gary, was that right? 6 months ago, we completed this design, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get this thing done. Let's put it in the queue. We'll release it this time frame, because I think this is a really special time for us to kind of promote, I think American involvement within Vietnam, and then obviously my direct tie, I think, with Special Forces.
Oh, yeah.
I've been reading about MAC V for, my entire life. Literally since I was 12, 13 years old. You guys were my idols. Like, just through pages of books. I didn't really have a chance to meet too many MAC V guys until much later in my life. So just having you here this is an extreme honor. I'm humbled that you guys would come on the show, or you would specifically come on the show. And I think for me, my mission for this next year is, one, we're doing a lot of historically themed coffees. I'm going to Vietnam to select some Vietnamese coffees.
I heard about that.
So I'm trying to get somebody to go with me so we can like go through some of the different locations that you guys might have fought in, and maybe do a whole narrative.
Well, it's going to get a little tricky, because the places we fought were Laos and Cambodia. Yeah. We came back to camp out and just to hang out in Vietnam. Things are pretty cool there compared to Laos and Cambodia.
Really?
Oh, yeah, for terms of our operations, yes, sir.
Well, please don't call me sir, because that's weird. But
Sergeant?
How about just Evan? We're good.
Okay.
But I think for me specifically, and then to pull this coffee in and then tie it directly into a story. We ran some stories on Coffee or Die, which is our blog, and really highlighting service in a wide variety of ways. I think there's such a different reception for the Vietnam veteran coming home than there has been for the post 9/11. Little bit different, right?
Yeah, but I think the good news is things were so bad then that ever since then, any service member that comes back from war is honored today.
Yeah.
And our country honors the service members, and they separate the service members from the war.
Right.
That's a benefit from that era.
I think maybe they've grown intellectually because of that, right? They didn't understand, or maybe society didn't quite understand how to differentiate between service members and what.
Well, yeah, and the anti-war movement at that time was so busy being anti-war,
right,
that they just pushed it at all levels, forgetting the human side of it.
Which I think, for at least my uncle was a Vietnam vet, and I've been able to talk to a lot of Vietnam vets. Like, that was probably one of the hardest things psychologically for guys, making that transition to come home and knowing, like, they just felt like the country kind of turned their back on them specifically. Did you think that when you were coming home?
Clearly, yeah. You know, there was that anti-war sentiment when we came home,
Mm-hmm.
and there are people who are just like, "What the heck are you doing? You're a baby killer," and things like that. It's
Right.
just like, no. And then we had a couple of parties. I guess we had one party, a college party,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been on campus for a couple of years. It's a party, so it was a lot of the anti-war people that were there, and they started getting into this baby killer thing. So I want to cold cock them,
Yeah.
but instead there's witnesses. So you know,
Right.
with witnesses you don't hit anybody. So I just said, look, the only time I was a baby killer when we ran out of food, and they go, and everybody just shut the hell up, and we went back to having a party.
That's actually super funny. But
Yeah. Try to have a little psyops.
Well, keep
reverse,
talking, because I'm going to make us some coffee here. This is required. What we did is we went with a 1 to 13 water to coffee ratio on this. This is about 200 degrees. I've got 33 grams of coffee, and why this is important, I like to look at this like I'm loading ammo or anything else. Like precision is important. It matters. You've got to be able to replicate the same taste. If you find one that you really like, you've got to kind of run with it and maintain that consistent taste, or you won't be able to understand how to fluctuate it in order to vary what kind of profile or taste you're trying to get out of it. The reason I'm using a French press, and technically I don't use a French press very often, I despise most things French, just in general, is because of the historical connection between Vietnam as a country and the French. So the French involvement in Vietnam prior to the American involvement, I felt that it was only appropriate for us to highlight and use the French press because of that. This is the only 86 scoring Vietnamese coffee. So I put 33 grams of coffee in here. I'm going to load it up with about 90 grams of water. I'm going to mix it up. I typically have a spoon to mix this thing up. And Tilt's probably looking at me like, dude, this guy's crazy with his coffee thing.
No,
It's a little bit crazy.
State-of-the-art.
And when you're looking at your time and your coffee ratios, these are important. Only if when you find the perfect cup. And Matt Leviner, he works in the coffee lab with me. We all kind of sat down and we beat this thing around. We tried it at 11, we tried it at 12, we tried it at 13, we tried it at 14, 14 to 1 coffee to water ratio. We tried it at different temperatures. This is our best attempt to give you the perfect 12-ounce French press cup of coffee. And when I say it's our best attempt, trust that we have several hours working through just mixing water, temperature, and coffee against ratios just to come up with what we felt was the best cup of coffee. So
That's
I'm going to do
impressive.
another round. You're going to do three rounds of water before you move up to 429. So it's 13 to 1 ratio, 429. All this stuff is in your box. And the MAC V thing, I want everybody to really understand what I'm trying to do with this as far as the bag is concerned, the coffee is concerned. I've been looking for a Vietnam special operations nonprofit that we can help support through this product. So the two things I'm doing with this product, I'm going to bring this product in as a mainstay product for Black Rifle Coffee. We're going to take a look at the profit involved with it, and we're going to donate it back to SOA, SFA, and a few other Vietnam-specific special operations nonprofits. So my goal is to be able to raise awareness for what your veteran, the veterans from Vietnam had done and accomplished, because the feats that they've accomplished and what they've done specifically related to war, and as a guy that spent the majority of my adult life in war, I can't imagine being in some of those situations, and the amount of respect that I have for you and your brothers this is the least I can do, is come up with a product that I feel serves a high quality product, and I went a little bit over, but it also gives back to the community in a way that we can all be proud of. I'm going to go to Vietnam. I'm going to select a new coffee for this, or maybe stay with the same one. I'm hoping to take somebody with me that can kind of look at what they did, what they accomplished. Maybe Trevor over here. He's a former Navy guy, a Navy SEAL, so
You gotta have one.
Yeah,
Every
I know.
operation's gotta have at least one.
token SEAL. That's what we always say.
Token.
Token SEAL. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a cup of coffee. I'm going to let you try this one. You're going to have to tell me what you think.
All right. Just straight up, right?
Yep, just
Good.
straight up.
That's the best.
I'm going to take yours out.
Very good.
He had coffee earlier. I made it for him in the coffee shop.
Just getting started with the good stuff.
All right. Tell me what you think. I'm going to have some too.
First, we'll toast.
Yep.
I like that generational SF thing. Airborne.
What do you think?
I like it.
It's not bad, right?
No.
Yeah. It's
I'm
pretty
using a
good.
little bit heavier. This has got a lot of flavor.
It's a fairly complex coffee, and when I say it is the most complex coffee we could pull out of Vietnam, there's not a ton of really complex, high-scoring coffees coming out of Vietnam. This is the best we could get. So I'm going to go ahead and pour myself a little bit more. Would you like another
Please.
hit?
Oh, yeah. That'll
All
get
right.
us through the show here.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's sit down. I'm going to move this over here.
And thank you.
No. So, no, first and foremost, thank you for coming in, being on the show. Where do I start? I think for most people, I think my history and involvement, before we get into your history and involvement, is I'm a prior Green Beret. A guy introduced me to the Special Forces history back when I was in my early teens, through a book written by Colonel Sutherland, which is the history of Special Forces, I think through 1977 or something like that.
Right.
And I grew up kind of reading these stories about Special Forces guys. So by the time that I was, 18, I already knew what I wanted to do. I didn't want to. Oh, come on in, sir.
Come on, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, get in here.
Hey, buddy. Pat, meet Evan.
Pat, nice to meet you. Come on in. Let's get you
We'll
mic'd
get you
up.
geared up, get the mic on you here in a minute.
Yeah,
I wasn't lost, I was misorientated.
I'm sorry.
Rangers never get lost.
Were you an officer?
No.
No, I'm a sergeant.
Just a little bit of a joke.
He was in the Marine Corps before
Really?
before he joined the Army. He and his wife met there. Yeah.
Wow.
They were fellow Marines together at Camp
Yeah.
Pendleton.
That's crazy.
A couple days ago, right, Pat?
A couple days ago?
Yeah.
Then my IQ went up and made me get out.
So my whole history and involvement with this is I grew up reading stories about Special Forces
Let's
in
get started
Vietnam,
with the
MAC
tape.
V. By the time I was 18, I already knew I wanted to be an SF guy and I wanted to work for the CIA. I was just happy and fortunate enough to keep all my eyes and ears and everything else, so I continued to do exactly what I set out to do, which very fortunate. And now I get to talk to you guys about your history and what you've done, because as a guy that, a few years ago, I read Dick Meadows, his biography.
Yeah,
And
served with Dick.
I'm still fascinated by this era of history. I'm still fascinated. I don't think there's been enough written about it. I really don't.
We agree.
I really
Well,
don't.
this is our biographer auto.
He's the historian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't till a lot of his stuff wouldn't be known.
Well, introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah.
Tell everybody kind of where you came from.
John Stryker Meyer, a.k.a. Tilt. Grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. It took me 2 years to flunk out of college. So after I flunked out, I read the book, The Green Berets. So like a lot of guys here on the team, read the book and go, if I go to Vietnam, I want to go with these guys.
Right.
I did, and I met this guy.
Oh, you
At-
guys met over
Oh,
there.
at Fubai.
Nice.
Yeah, FOB1.
Yep.
And and Pat, to his credit, he's had 3 tours in Vietnam, all with MAC V-SOG, all running recon, all well married,
With two
I might
kids.
add, with 2 kids.
2 kids.
And the very first story in my second book, On the Ground, involves Pat, where Pat's team is in our worst target, Oscar 8. They've watched trucks, bulldozers, and enemy troops move all night. And right before sunlight, an enemy soldier came up to one of his brew and said, "It's your turn for guard duty." That's how close they were to the NVA that night, literally right there. One of my favorite all-time
Yeah,
stories.
Highway 22 by Trompak was, we We should have never been. I was misorientated there too. I should have been going that way. But yeah, we went in. They shot down a helicopter getting us in. Then I ruined my assistant team leader's day by saying, "Hey, we got to go get the crew of the helicopter out." He said, "I like it right here in this bomb crater. What are we moving for?"
So what year did you enlist then?
So I enlisted in December of '66.
Which today's your anniversary date.
I'm
right?
there, yeah. December 1st.
holy
December
Absolutely.
1st.
You're old
Right.
enough to
Couple
vote
days
now.
ago.
About time.
And then, so then basic training, AIT,
Yeah, yeah.
jump school, special forces, commo.
Yeah. Oh, you're a
And then-
commo guy?
Yeah, and then we did TDY.
Most of the guys were in SOG. They were
Yeah.
all of our young troopers were 05Bs.
Well, how? And I'll get into this a little bit later. But when did you enlist?
I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1956 when I graduated from high school,
Wow.
and spent 7 years in the Corps.
Met Carol.
Met my wife there at Camp Pendleton, California, where Tilt lives now, right outside there. His father-in-law was a Marine.
Right.
Once a Marine, then your IQ goes up and never a Marine. But I got out of the Marine Corps and joined the Army immediately. I needed some adult leadership, and my wife was bugging me too much about real work.
Right.
So I joined the Army and went to jump school, Ranger school, went to the 82nd Airborne, went to the Dominican Republic. We had a little war down there.
Really?
Yeah, 1965. We were down, I was in 17th Cav. To tell you the truth, one of my best friends in Special Forces, Tommy Shook, you know Shook,
Sure.
Sergeant Major. He was Command Sergeant Major of 75th Rangers. Me and him served together, and Don Rapp spent 8 months there, and that was in the days you didn't try to get out of an airborne assignment because they were losing troops to the SF, and you couldn't. You had to go take the entrance
Yeah.
exam. So I snuck over to Smoke Bomb Hill without my first sergeant knowing, and took the test and got orders. Went to weapons school. They sent most of the sergeants, guys. I had 10 years in the service by that
Right.
time. I was an old timer, infantry all the
Yeah.
way, and went to basic training. Went to 6th Group, which was like a repo depot for
Right.
Vietnam. And kind of funny, my A team I was on had 2 Medal of Honor winners on it.
Who were they?
Snake Hoskins was my team leader, and Fred Zabakowski
Oh, wow.
was our radio operator.
Really?
A fellow Trentonian. from
Yeah,
Trenton,
he's
New Jersey.
him and
Zabatowski, these guys were both on your ODA?
Yeah.
yeah,
My
me and
God.
Mia. I could tell you stories about Fred, but
Not
that-
today,
we're not.
no,
We're not open for business.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fred was a work of art.
Really?
Yeah, great guy.
So when you joined in 1956, so you were trained by a lot of, I would imagine, the Marines that were like Iwo Jima,
Oh, yeah,
Oki, and
yeah.
all those guys. Like,
Yeah, I had a first sergeant that was Bougainville, Saipan, 3rd Wave of Iwo Jima, and then they got ready to go into Japan.
yeah,
And then Korea broke out, and he was at Chosun Reservoir.
No.
And get this, typical Marines, you seen all that action? The only medals he had was the 3 Purple Hearts.
No.
A good conduct medal.
just the 3 Purple Hearts.
3 Purple Hearts,
Yeah.
yeah. Marine Corps got a philosophy, if you're not a pop-up target, you're not a real Marine.
Right.
But yeah,
I've been reading more about those, like the island hopping. That's what I've been reading a lot about the last few months. And I'd read a lot about some of it, but I didn't realize the extent of the cave system that they had in Oki and how
Oh, yeah.
and how big and elaborate it was. And then I was reading the Japanese perspective, and they had like 20,000+ troops on that island defending it, and they lost every one of them except for 1,000 guys or something like that, which was just the incredible task at hand, what that entire island hopping campaign throughout all of the islands, those guys endured. I can't even imagine it. You know, there's a saying like, I'd walk through a mile of flaming shit. Like, I think that came from those, from that.
The Walking Dead, they were
Yeah.
called. Yeah, they, I was on Okinawa in the Marines in 1957.
Yeah.
And we'd go out towards Naha
Uh-huh.
and that area up there on problems. And we'd find bunkers and stuff with bodies still in them.
Still.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just left them in place. They flamethrower, you know.
Yeah.
they flamethrower 'em. I was at Camp Koza, which was an old zero base. And you know those tombs they got on Okinawa?
Oh, yeah.
Those tombs. There was all kinds of shells, bullet holes on them, because the Japanese went in there and used them as fortifications, and the only way they got them out was burn them out.
Yeah.
And it was so funny, I was taking karate on the island to keep me out of trouble. The bar system was too much for an 18-year-old from Indiana.
Right.
Anyhow, in my dojo, my sensei was a Japanese Royal Marine captain.
Really?
Yeah. And he let us know they didn't lose the war, they just run out of ammunition. You know?
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you had all this time in the Marine Corps. So by the time you got over to the Army, I mean, I can imagine like being trained by a lot of those Marines. When you got into the Army, was there? What'd you think of it?
Culture shock.
Yeah, culture.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about
Yeah.
that. I was in 80 Deuce, and I was a corporal. I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and they took one stripe away from me when I come in the Army. Yeah, I didn't have to go through basic
Right.
training. I already been through hell, Marine Corps boot camp, you know. So anyhow, it was so funny. It was kind of like, well, you're the lowest ranking NCO, march the troops to the motor pool deal. And I'd been there like a week. I was still, you know, calling the walls the bulkhead and the floor the
Yeah.
deck and drinking fountain the scuttlebutt. And, you know, all those Navy terms that the Marines are stuck with, you know. Go upstairs on the O1 deck, you know. Anyhow, First Sergeant says, Corporal Watkins, get out here and march the troops in the motor pool. And I said, yes, Sergeant Major. Got out there and I said, give him attention. I said, right face, forward march, per your left, and they stopped right there. Corporal Watkins, fall in the rank, Sergeant so-and-so, get out here and march the troops. It's like, you're a typical Marine, you can't count to 4, you know, just quit this hey on your left crap. So it took me about a year to get Army-ized, you know, and everything else. But Special Forces is full of former Marines.
Oh yeah. Yeah, even when I mean, much later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we had a bunch of guys who would always hop the fence. They'd get out and they'd come over. And a bunch of guys from like recon and battalion and
Oh, yeah.
those,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, "Well, we got better gear." We got,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
It's just like we get better gear. We
We were
smaller
using
teams.
World War I. Well, I carried an M1 when I first come in, right?
Right.
And then M14s, when we went to Nam, you know, the Marines were still carrying M14s.
Yeah, without the A2.
I was
Just
a-
a regular M14.
I was a caisson during the siege, you know. We were running across the fence in an Oscar 8 target. And the Marines up there, you know, 2 things they had to do, wear their helmet and have a flak jacket on, you know. It was like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, rats eating your toes and all that stuff. But it was, and they're still carrying M14s.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough magazines, they just wore bandoliers.
Yeah.
They like 2 or 3 there was a saying in the Corps, more for the Corps and less for the troops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
what year did you first go to Vietnam then?
That first tour was I went over with the Marines. Joe Conlon was a Marine.
Oh, sure.
Same thing.
AKA Pigpen.
Pigpen,
Yeah.
Major Conlon. And he was former Marine. They sent us from Okinawa to Thailand.
Right.
That we were supposed to, because we weren't supposed to be in late 60s.
Okay.
And well, it was 63 really.
Right.
And we got there in 64, and then they sent us to Dang Air Base for security. because the Air Force, they
Yeah.
starting to bring zappers in here today. And we spent 2 weeks there. I think we shot 2 water buffalo, and that's about it. Then they sent us back to the Rock. Okay, but then I went, the first tour was in '67, Special Forces. I went to FOB4,
In
and
Da Nang.
then I Marble Mountain.
Yeah.
So
Then I had a bad experience. We were supposed to open up a new, we had a place called Cam Duck, which is DM's old hunting lodge up in the highlands. Tigers all over the place, wild elephants. I mean, we used to call it the leech farm because you couldn't step off the hard can without 50 leeches
Really?
coming up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're terrible. That's where I met Dick Meadows. Nick was in charge of the 1-0 school there when I went there. And Dick was an old master sergeant, got a direct commission. And anyhow, they put us through a shake and bake course there, how to, travel in a file, which we did all that, rectal fire. And anyhow, we were going to open up to go across the border because they sighted a division moving down. They thought just before Tet, they were going to hit Da Nang. And I was going up in the King Beans, you know about that. We had the Vietnamese helicopter pilots, and the weather was just terrible. We're low level in the caisson. We started taking fire from the ground. I could see the green tracers coming. All of a sudden, we started circling and went back, and there was fire smoke coming out of the jungles, and they shot down one of the helicopters. So the ironic thing was I almost went on that helicopter. We were getting ready to load at Da Nang on the helicopter, and there were 5 1-0s in that helicopter, all friends of mine. And I started to get on chopper, and they said, well, there's no room on this, go on the next one. So I went on the next one. They shot that one down, got them, killed them all. And I went in, me and Chuck Feller went in and covered their bodies.
And that's like November 30th, 1968. We had a quick hit mission. They called it the Eldest Son, which was enemy ammo designed to explode when they used it.
oh yeah,
They
They
released
had-
it on Okinawa.
Yeah.
That 12th Support Brigade there in Oki.
right.
CISO.
This is-
And the helicopter was en route and got shot down with 7 SF guys on it.
Yeah.
That was November 30th, 68.
You know what I used to do with that Eldest Son? Left it out of my LZ. I ain't carrying that shit.
So that was your first trip in
Yeah, full tour.
Full
Yeah,
tour?
Yeah. Then I then came back, I was in 5 different, that was in the old days, you used to shift you around to so many groups. When I was at the 7th for an award ceremony, those guys, the sergeant major said he spent his whole career in the 7th group. It was like, I was in the 1st, 6th, 5th,
right.
10th, 1st.
Yeah, after your tour in Vietnam, you were up at 10th together.
Yeah, what the dirt. I tried to get him on my team, but they were punishing him and made him go to headquarters company. So he volunteered to go back now.
How did you? So Special Forces, now there's something called Special Forces Assessment and Selection, or SFAS, and there's
Yeah.
the Q course.
Yeah,
How did you get selected and trained for Special Forces back then?
they were desperate.
Yeah,
They need warm bodies.
yeah,
We taking casualties like
right,
it's unbelievable. Like these guys, hell, their only formal infantry training basically was going through AIT.
right.
And then they went to the career, their MOS course, radio operators. Hell, we never used CW since,
Yeah.
since World War II. What
Right.
a waste. Still carrying those 109s that the OSS used.
Yeah. You using hand keys? Were you doing some Morse code? Did
We
you learn
never
that?
used it in
Never
country.
used. Did you ever learn it though?
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, these guys.
It was the same
yeah.
thing. I was like one of the last
that right?
classes that
Yeah.
use or to learn Morse
I got
code.
recycled. I had a 10-year, man. I had a hard time
Yeah.
getting up to about
But
15
they were the
words.
basis of a SOG, where these young guys, Spec 4s and Buck Sergeants,
Right.
were radio operators, basically. And then us guys that had infantry training,
Right.
we saw handwriting on the wall, some God, I'm glad you're here, son. Come over here, I'll teach you how this works, but don't get me under fire. But basically, these guys were the backbone of SOG. You know, we did officers. You know, I never been on the ground with an officer in combat.
Wow.
You know, special forces at that time was enlisted man. You know,
Yeah.
because we didn't have a career group.
Yeah.
Well, we had a few officers that served later that did okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
they were the exception.
Yeah, they all got Medal of Honors.
Yeah. They're all writing their awards, man. So when you were at the 82nd,
Yeah.
but you wanted to get over to Special Forces.
Oh, did I want it? I got tired of spit shine boots. And I thought I was back in the damn Marine Corps. Yeah, cracking starch twice a day, man.
So you're trained by the Marines that were like the old breed type
Yeah,
guys.
it was the old breed.
And
We
then
were
you went
still
over to
wearing
80
harrowing.
Deuce, and there were probably a bunch of guys from like D-Day, the European campaign.
There
still.
were a lot of them, but there were a lot of guys hiding over there
Yeah.
too. I mean, because it was kind of, you know, the 173rd was over there, 100 and Worst was over there,
Yep.
and you know they were kind of like a repo depot too.
Really.
And you know they were kind of like we went to Don Rep in that operation. They kind of kept him there. You know, I guess they was worried about riots in Detroit again or something like that. You know,
Right.
to go deploy him, but it was a place you wanted out of.
Okay, got it. So that's why you wanted out. You're
Yeah.
going to go to
Well, I
Special
always
Forces.
wanted to go Special Forces.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Is that why you joined the Army?
Well, I
then?
was on Okie. See, they had the first group
Got
there
it,
when I was
yep.
in the Marine Corps, and I seen, God, what are these guys? You know,
Right.
don't talk to them. You know, it was kind of like, don't you talk to them.
Really?
Oh,
Even
yeah.
back then?
Oh, Marine
Yeah.
Corps. They thought they were the only ones that ever fought a war. You know, you had to remind them. You know, there were Army troops in the Pacific too. You know, how about the Philippines? You know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Corps is that way. Yeah.
So you're motivated to go over and be a Special Forces
Oh,
guy.
yeah,
That's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
Of course, my wife didn't want me to do it.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that you know, at that time, you know, you had more freedom in SF.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like Kilt could tell you that you know nobody judged what you said when you were under fire or something. You know, you got what you wanted. I flew what they call covey with the facts,
Yep.
putting teams in and stuff. Once had some. You know, the guys on the ground, you know, if they want to attack air, we got attack air. You know, we didn't have air
Yeah, see,
traffic control.
this is one of the things about SOG was that we had FAC, which is codenamed Covey, and there'd be people like Pat, Spider Parks, men who had been on the ground, so the Air Force would have a pilot.
Yep.
We used a lot of O2s, and the early days was an O1, but O2 during '68, and so the Covey rider would be our link from the
Yeah.
ground, talk to him, he would tell the pilot, or however, to get whatever air assets we needed. And then if they were there, we would go through Covey directing all the airstrikes.
Right.
But it would be through the Covey riders, like Pat. And additional to that, we have Pat, John McGovern, Spider Parks, who,
Old time.
us green kids, I mean, green berets in country,
Yeah.
this is who we learned from, the men we looked up to.
Yeah.
And without that, man, forget about it. That and good little people.
That and keeping you guys away from the range before you wouldn't blow yourselves up a trip.
Unless we tried.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was SOG, and we didn't. It wasn't SOG in those days. It was CNC.
CNC.
Yeah, command and control. SOG was the headquarters in Saigon, where they all wore khakis and
Yeah.
ate 3 hots in the cot.
Right. Yeah, how did that come to be? Like, do you guys know how that acronym came to be, and why is it called, you know, the Military Advisory? Like, where did that
Well,
acronym come from, and why?
Well, it was a cover story.
Yeah.
You know, it was really special operational group.
Yep.
Right. And they changed the name to protect the innocent. You know, studies and observation group.
Right.
It's kind of like, remember Merrill's Marauders?
Yep.
They changed their names in the Pacific too to the United Combined Group or
Right.
something under just protect their identity.
Got it.
Well, the Secret War was in the Navy budget.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
reporters would go through the budget, they say Military Assistance Command,
Oh,
Vietnam
gotcha.
studies and observations
Yeah.
group. So the dumbass reporters would go, "Oh, give me the good shit."
Yeah.
They
yeah.
go right past it. But our
Okay.
entire budget was there, which included
Gotcha.
us hiring for our mercenaries,
Yep.
paying for the King Bees, the South Vietnamese helicopter pilots who were fearless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're alive
Yeah.
today thanks to the King Bee pilots.
Really.
They
amongst
give them a
others.
cross-border pay to fly across the.
And that was all in the Navy budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that was hidden. That's why they, and before that was MAG, and that was back when the agency was overseeing a lot of operations, but then it
Country
changed.
team.
They came back with MAC V-SOG, and then they needed cross-border patrols.
They needed warm bodies.
So it started, it was 8 year Secret War.
Yeah.
It went from 64 all the way through to 72.
Yeah, I was there in '72.
Yeah, he was there at the very
Closed
end.
the door up. Tell you the truth, I was at Bambi Tut. We had all yards. I ran the last mission. It was funny. I ran the last mission on FOB 3, Australia.
Right, yeah.
And the last one out of Bambi Tut. But yeah, it was
That was
kind
a
of.
bright light, right?
It was a destroyer, 20th SOS helicopter. I told
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Went down. And they didn't want to leave that all that good stuff, so I went in and destroyed it and give my position away. Smart Watkins. Yeah. But yeah, it was. To tell you the truth, in '72, we were wearing black baseball caps then because the 5th group had left and take their colors back, and we were called TFs and TFs. And most of them were, guys looking for CIB because the war was ending.
Right.
But we had it, when we closed down Bambi Tut with CCS, that we had a contingency plan how we were going to fight our way through the South Vietnamese army to get out of it because they knew we were leaving and they were in fear of all their support
Oh,
and
right.
all this crap.
Right.
It was a mess. I mean, an absolute mess. And yeah. And then we were leaving our little people behind. It's kind of
Yeah.
like in Syria with the
Yeah.
leaving the
Yeah.
Kurds.
the Kurds behind. We seem to be good at people that support us to say, Ali, Ali, Ox, we're gone.
Yeah, which is it's a different topic, but that's one of the things that we saw a lot of, and it's funny because I worked at the agency for 9 years, so I knew there's
Country
still a
teams.
lot of guys that were in Vietnam that were still kicking around out there. To be
Billy
quite
Wall.
frank, like, some of these guys, man, they were incredible. Like they were incredible, and I met a guy over there that was still doing stuff with us, and he was at the Bay of Pigs. Like that's
Yeah.
how
No.
far.
Yeah.
So I could sit down and pick the brains of guys that have gone. Like that was what 61 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was in when they had the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
I was in the Marine Corps. We were dug in on the golf course at Gitmo.
really,
Yeah,
Can you imagine
ready
that?
to die.
ready to get vaporized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was like we don't know what's going on.
I was in high school. I read about it in New York Slimes.
Yeah, the slimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a. Well, you know George Bacon.
sure. George Washington Bacon.
Yeah, he was CIA. Got killed in Angola. He was
Oh,
one
yeah.
of our guys.
Sold your Fortune magazine. did a
Another
big piece on
Angola,
him.
like forgotten pieces of American
Yeah, we're
clandestine
great
at
history,
that,
right?
yeah.
Where it's
Yeah.
like people forget that we are fighting Cubans in Angola, which is a
Yeah.
crazy connection. Where you're fighting Soviets and Cubans in
No,
an
we were
African
fighting
country.
Cubans in the Dominican Republic.
You're fighting
And we had
Cubans. there, too.
Cubans in Vietnam, Southeast Asia
Yeah.
too.
Did you really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Wow.
Chinese, Russians.
Yeah, we used to have, when we go out across the fence, we get on the radio, contact the teams, because we were the only commo, except that they could have, we had an airborne CP, 7th Air Force, that flew C-130s, guys, they were listeners, listened to their communications. And that was their only, once we left, because all the radios were line of sight,
Yep.
PRC-25s,
Yeah.
PR-77, so they had no, once we left, it was,
gone.
and that's the reason teams just disappeared.
Right.
The Spiders team
Yeah.
disappeared. You never knew what happened.
Well, yeah, I arrived at Fubai, FOB1, get off the chopper, a recon team.
Yeah.
Spike Team Idaho gets on it. So it's 2 Americans, Glenn Lane
Holds.
and Robert Owen. They go in and they gave a team okay, and that was the last they heard from. A bright light went in, 2 days later?
Yeah, and they got the shit shot.
And they got the shit shot out of them. And they had 1 KIA, everybody was WIA, and they got hit with American grenades and the CAR-15s.
Right.
So they assumed all that was picked
Oh,
up.
gotcha.
Tell you
So-
the truth, they were grabbing the hand grenades and throwing them out of the.
Right. And a couple they didn't catch one blew off Troll's jungle boots during the middle of the firefight. They were in a bomb crater, and the NVA were throwing hand
Ashout
grenades in.
Valley.
And one grenade, he couldn't get it out in time, it blew off his jungle boots.
Yeah, it was all water down the bomb
Right.
crater because of the rainy season. They were down there fishing in the water, grabbing grenades and throwing them back.
Yeah. So that was, this is my bracelet, is Sergeant Lane. There was an instant opening in recon at flew by.
Right.
So Spider Parks, who was on the team, he'd been promoted.
He'd been wounded. He was
Yeah.
recovering from his wounds for the other mission. That's the reason he didn't go out with him. That's the reason he's still got a guilt complex.
Oh yeah.
He's still over there looking.
He's been back a few times. On
Has
the
he?
outside.
7 times.
Seven
now.
times?
Yeah.
Well, I've read that too. I think John Plaster, right?
Yeah,
He wrote,
John flew Covey out
Yeah.
of Pontoon.
Well, he's written a ton on
Yeah.
this too. And
He's the godfather of our SOG writers.
really,
Tell
terms
you
of
the
the
truth, he got the
contemporary patterns.
Presidential Unit Citation
Yeah.
for SOG. It was-
I met him at the JFK has their museum
Yeah.
right there, and I have a signed copy of one of his books. But the statistics involved with being on a recon team was when I was looking at that. I think he had mentioned it in one of his books. It was crazy, the amount of KIA, WIA. I guess the
Oh,
survival rate was. Do you guys remember what that is?
Well, the casualty rate exceeded 100%
Yeah.
because
See,
people like
multiple-
Bob Howard,
That was in 68.
yeah, because they had multiple Purple Hearts. So
Yeah,
you're either
Howard had
KIA, wounded in action, or
Right.
missing in action. I mean, today as we sit here, there are still 1,587 Americans MIA in Southeast Asia from the Vietnam War. 50 are Green Berets in Laos alone from
Wow.
the Secret War. Then you tag on another 120, 130 air support,
Yep.
Marine Corps, Army, Air Force that died supporting the teams on the ground. And then the other number is Vietnam War, 3.2 million Americans served in country,
Right.
including 500,000 sailors that were off
Yep.
the coast. Out of that, approximately 22,000 were in SF. Out of that, approximately 2,000 were in SOG.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that, depends which author you talk to,
Mm-hmm.
between 400 to 800 ran recon.
right.
If that many. Because a lot of them were returnees.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 'cause I went
Hey,
back,
it's-
Pat went back.
So what was the difference, I guess, between the guys that were in country serving on an ODA and the guys that were serving in MAC V? Like, what was the difference in the missions?
Oh, the ODAs were force multipliers, as SF, you know
Right.
that. As SF is.
But
and-
for the readers, explain what you
Yeah.
mean on that.
Well, the whole philosophy behind Special Forces Advise, Train, and Assist.
Right.
And, you know, that's what they trained us for. They didn't train us to be commandos or this. But when you got a number 2 hat and a 58 shirt, you automatically get assigned this kind of thing.
That's solid.
But the bottom line was the ODAs in country, most of them are in old French camps.
Really.
Yeah, Legionnaire camps. And they were star camps, triangle camps, went all the and like the French, all the war heroes are in a matchbook cover. They had them all in valleys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like Afghanistan, where they, you know, they could never control the high ground. You know, sticking down the valleys.
Well, and that's one thing I've never, because you read anything on like Dien Bien Phu and some
Yeah.
of those where
Yeah.
that,
That was in
that
the
thing
valley.
was, why would you ever put that in there?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any
Because it's the
sense.
French.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the French have been fighting wars long enough to know that they
there-
don't fucking do that.
there you go.
You would think.
You would
Yeah,
think.
you'd think.
You would think.
But we were just as bad. We went in and basically took over their camps. Tell you the truth, a lot of our Nungs, our Chinese, Vietnamese,
Yeah.
had served with them.
Wow.
It was the Legion. I had a guy named Trom Bui who was a true Nung. He was
Right.
he wasn't a Cholon cowboy.
Right.
A what?
A A Chinese district
Oh,
of
gotcha.
Saigon was called Cholan District.
Gotcha.
And we used to get these nuns from them, we call them Cholan cowboys. They basically, had Zippo lighters and, driving a Honda motorcycles. So now they're nuns. But the nuns always had a reputation of being, they didn't like any Vietnamese.
Right.
They just as soon kill South Vietnamese.
Just like the Brood of Monteillards.
But we just used them up.
Oh, yeah.
Trombouille had TB so bad, I used to take codeine tablets, remember those little
Oh, yeah.
codeine tablets? Chop them up and put them in that GI cough medicine before he wouldn't cough in the field. I mean, he was
yeah.
high at the time. But he knew more about war than I ever know. But yeah, it was kind of crazy too because we had a problem, like we were in Fubai, our hatchet force, our company size operations, were all Cambos, and they were KKK. Campbell were bandits, really,
Right.
and the CIA had come in and paid off their leaders and stuff to give them warm bodies. And hell, some of these kids were 12, 13 years old. I mean, they're just kids. And then our troops were all either Mountaineers or Vietnamese,
Right.
and they just, well, we had
Well, yeah,
we had gunfights.
When our team, well, yeah, in base, and then our team, when we hired 3 15-year-olds. They were 15 when they came on the team, trained them up, and they were just stone killers within a few
Didn't know any
months.
different. Yeah, I had a bunch of Mountaineers, and not one of them were above 14, 15 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And was there a difference, I guess, between the guys that were working at the agency and the guys that were military? And then was there kind of a combined force? I mean,
No.
You had Marines and everybody else in MAC V, or was it all?
They had
special
different. They
forces?
had different.
Everything was separated.
Really?
Yeah, they had
Very
Op
compartmentalized.
32 was psych or Phoenix,
PSYOPs.
Phoenix program.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Right. Op 33 was the SEALs, and they did all in country.
And some up in North Vietnam on the coast, right?
Yeah, they did some island stuff.
Yeah.
SEALs sure can swim, type of stuff. I
They
mean,
can. And Trevor was a SEAL.
yeah, well, they know. Now they send them to Ranger School and get them trained. They thought the Buds course was combat. Yeah. I went through
Oh, you didn't
I went through mixed gas school, Coronado, with a bunch of SEALs, and we'd go out there on the levee and watch Buds. And these guys would throw beer cans at them and everything else. But
We still do.
yeah,
After they carried the telephone poles, wasn't that when you graduated? No, I'm sorry.
Sure
Just
can.
kidding. Only kidding. Only kidding.
they the best thing that happened to SEAL teams and special forces and force recon and stuff, it was Desert One, when that fiasco
Yeah.
went on. They all of a sudden decided, man, maybe we ought to train these guys together and learn how to, function together, and then SOCOM.
Right.
So it started, and I was talking to McCravens about that, and he was stating that, he said, we were lost in the woods until all that stuff happened.
Well, what year did Sante? What year was that?
70. Was it 70 or 71? 70.
Yeah, I
December.
could tell you a story about Sankey.
Yeah.
Please do. Yeah. Because I reading like the history of Delta Force, right? Which I don't know if Beckwith actually wrote it, but he talked about Vietnam, and he talked about there was a difference between even the special forces guys that were in country. You'd had guys that were like hardened, like ready to fucking go mix it up, and then you had another type of special forces guy that was more interested in just kind of hanging out, not really getting in the mix. Did you guys see that? Was there?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how
Yeah.
could you stay out of it? I guess like that was a question I wanted to ask
There's always
him.
support troops.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's always rear echelon motherfuckers,
Yeah, REMS.
Grimps.
Right.
And some would be like they would train. They'd be in training for the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or they'd
somehow
be
when
in
they
Bad
came-
Toast, Germany, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I got to go war. I
Right.
speak German in other languages
Well.
nobody uses.
So you could see that, and
Oh,
guys
yeah,
were actively looking for ways that
Oh.
they could wear the cool hat, but not really.
There was a
Not really do it.
There, in our time in SF, and I spent 15 years in SF, there was a different cultural thing. And I'll tell you the truth, part of it was an officer enlisted culture because we didn't have branch.
Right.
These guys, they couldn't get their command time, on an A-team or something like that, so they were gone. And, A-teams are run by team sergeants and everything else. And if you, some of the officers, and most of the officers we had were OCS, and they got rifted. When they had, and they had like 20 goddamn captains looking for one major thing, because we needed ground officers in Vietnam. We didn't majors and staff jobs. But it was mostly when you come back to the States, you saw it then.
Yeah.
And then you started the same old bullshit, on Goober Road, police call crap, down at Special Warfare Center, doing some kind of support crap. And,
but getting back to Vietnam, and those aid camps, some of those aid camps had historic battles, like Lang Vay getting, eventually overrun.
I was Quezon.
And Quezon.
You were at Quezon.
And we had 3 aid camps
They
in
would
the Asphalt
they
Valley.
would have died if it hadn't been for us.
Yeah.
George got everybody together. We had a major. It was an enlisted man, and the Marines wouldn't go in.
Because they knew, they
They're
had an
afraid
intel
of being
report the NVA was going to
ambushed.
ambush them
Right.
if they went to Lang Vay.
It did not the Marines personally. There was a Colonel
the
Lowry
command.
who
Right.
hated us to start with because we never did what he wanted us to do. And our commanders were weak, Barr and Smith.
Yeah.
They stayed in a bunker. And Cuomo ran the place, George
He was good.
Cuomo.
In the Asphalt Valley, we had 3 aid camps that got literally overrun.
Yeah.
One at a time,
One of
65.
our launch, Cam Duck, got overrun. It was in the valley, old French camp.
Yeah, it was
First-
68, early part of 68 they got
May,
run over.
May of '68.
Yeah.
But they, Long Bay, hell, we told them, Troll told them, they, PT-76 tanks, they made a fording across this river, Pong Tong River, said that they're going to bring tanks in on you, and sure in the hell they did.
And see, here's the story. One of the guys that's a survivor is, he was a lieutenant then, was Paul Longrear. And so Paul said they got a warning from the Air Force. But see, our recon team tells the brass, tanks. So it goes to Saigon, it comes back, it goes
chain of
to
command
the
problems.
A team, and the way it gets reported is, Air Force intel said there might be tanks. Now, Paul Longrear told me personally, said, had we known that SF had saw that and told us, we would have had 24 hours to get ready for the tanks, and they would have tested their laws, the light
Piece of shit.
anti-tank weapon, because they malfunctioned.
Yeah.
Had they had 24 hours to test them
Yeah.
and to get to the really good tank killers.
And when they stored them in Vietnam, they're environmentally sensitive to moisture.
Right.
And so when they extended them, you just had to extend them to fire them. And it was a wire thing.
Oh, yeah.
They never went in the fire position.
Well, and Paul had another insight there. One of the pallets that had the laws on it, they dropped it from too high up. So it had severe impact, so some of them
Those
didn't
things
work.
were tipped
But
them.
again, they learned this all after the camp.
Well, that's the way it always
Yeah.
is in combat.
Right.
You never learn from your mistakes. If you live, But yeah, Long Bay, those guys, they got lucky too. They all gathered in that bunker except Adley and those guys
Right.
out there got killed. And one of my best friends, Ken Hanna, got killed there. They were all in that bunker, which the CBs had come in, and it was reinforced concrete. And they kept throwing hand grenades down into the thing on them. And hell, they were smothering them in the bunker. Everybody was wounded. Then what's his name got left behind because he was dying. They couldn't get him out.
And right near in the morning when it was completely overrun, they had a tank literally on top of the command bunker, and a Navy A-1 Skyraider came in and took it out, and that turned it around enough they could get out.
Wow.
And then SOG went in and picked him up.
Yeah.
George went in and picked him up because the Marines wouldn't come down. But And then you talked to Thompson, haven't you?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
He was he was on the Mike Force. So we had a Mike Force out of Da Nang, and Mike Force down the road. They were there to reinforce the camp, and he was on one of the outliers with some Laotian troops. The Laos that come across the border, we had a CIA compound across the border called Elephant, and the Laos, the Royal Laotian Army, they got driven out and they went into that camp. And that was another thing too. You never knew what type of agents were in there.
Right.
You know. We suffered that problem in Vietnam, just like you do in Afghanistan. You know, anytime you training in DID, you never know. Yeah. Can't make. There's trust is about this big sometimes.
Right.
But he was on an outpost and they got overrun and they were running around trying to get out, figuring out what to do. Well, they finally got to the LZ with the helicopter and they were security and got left behind.
Yeah.
And Thompson spent 5 years in a camp in the middle of the jungle as a POW.
And that was just the regular Green Berets.
Yeah.
The regular SFA camps.
Yeah, we only had one SOG guy,
Yeah.
Cavaletti, John.
John Caviani.
Yeah, John, and he was on an out Hickory when I really
Hickory, yeah.
realized.
Well, was Nick Rowe? Was he on a regular ODA or was he with MAC
Correct,
V?
yeah.
He was on a regular ODA, right?
Right.
And
Who, Mike?
Nick Rowe.
Nick Rowe.
Oh, Nick Rowe, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Nick was, I knew Nick when he was in the Philippines.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we were down there running operations out at first.
Before he was assassinated down there?
He
or-
was, working for the embassy. He was
Yeah.
with the working country team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where was he scooped up? I mean, I've read
On
5
an
Years to
aid camp in the
Freedom.
Delta.
Okay.
Him
Yeah.
and Fortenberg and, lives in Texas, got the DSC. Billy Wall's buddy, Camacho.
Oh,
Hi.
yeah.
They all got policed up. You know, Camacho escaped, Rowe escaped, and they killed Fortenberg
Right.
as a retaliation deal.
Right.
Brought him out in front of everybody and shot him. You know, they got lucky. Rowe almost got killed. You know, when he escaped, he was on. He went out on an LZ and was
Yeah.
waving at everybody, and
Yeah.
they were about ready to hose him. The gun crew was, and they saw he had blonde hair, and they went in and picked him up.
Oh, yeah. Very lucky.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part about this is when I look at the conflict and kind of where it started, because really it started in late 50s, right?
Yeah,
For us, it started late 50s.
yeah.
And then it
Yeah,
went all
Banks
the way.
was over there.
Yeah.
Colonel Banks was, yeah.
Well, he was there, right, when he met with Ho Chi
Oh, yeah.
Minh.
During World War II, he was there. He met with Ho Chi Minh, rode down Highway 1 with him.
Yeah.
And the Citron.
Yeah.
He was telling me about it. Oh,
Yeah.
French Citron.
If you guys don't know who Aaron Banks is, like Aaron Banks is considered the father of SF. He was a first Special Service Force guy. He was a colonel even
Yeah.
back in the when was he promoted to colonel? Back in the 50s?
He was right. Yeah, he was right after Korea.
Right.
He was always super spook stuff. He was,
Yeah.
he was a Jed guy, like
Yeah.
Singalap.
Sure.
Have you guys met a lot of the Jedburgh guys? Have you guys
Yeah, I
interfaced
did.
with a lot of those guys?
Yeah, in the old days.
Yeah.
But everybody's got war stories. We had actual.
Well, that's part of our
combat.
lineage, you know, was
Yeah.
that goes back to the Jedburghs, behind enemy lines, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Just that we had the helicopters, a little different MO than what they had.
Well, they were more too. They were organized guerrilla bands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, keep supplies coming in for them. That was the whole mission in Belgium and France.
Right. Well, and their survival rate for the Jedburgh team was like 1 out of 100
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
they
too.
got-
It was like astronomically.
Yeah, yeah. They were.
tipped
We call them stay behind missions.
Mm.
Forever.
yeah.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
that-
had a black program, Thundercloud.
Yeah.
That was that way. We were repatriated. Whoops.
No signal? It says no signal. Sorry, we're trying to figure out some technology issues.
We have a minute left.
If you guys are
Was the SEAL
just tuning in,
IT guy?
yeah, Seal is. We're talking with a couple guys here, former MAC V, and if you haven't seen this, it's Across the Fence by John Stryker Meyer. So go check it out. You've also got a podcast too, correct? for the podcast?
No, we're working on it.
We're working on it. Well, we can help out. What else?
If they switch to Facebook, we can keep running.
Yeah, we can switch to Facebook and keep running. So we'll keep talking. So
Mike?
switch over to Facebook
You see that
or
box there?
YouTube. We'll continue to
Open it
keep
up,
going.
Please. And then near the end, let me have it.
But
Instagram.
We're going to present it to the
Instagram's
boss.
done. So one of the commitments that I have for 2020, if you guys are just tuning in, it's to highlight service of previous Special Forces, Special Operations guys and throughout their service. We're fortunate enough to have a couple guys from MAC V or MAC V-SOG, I guess. What do you
MAC
guys
V-SOG.
What do you guys typically refer to it as? MAC V-SOG internally?
Well, now we just say SOG. And back in our
SOG.
day, we're on the ground, would be CNC mostly.
Okay, yeah.
But because of SOG, it's the acronym that gained a lot of visibility through the books.
Mm-hmm. Who came up with this patch? Like this is the patch, which is also I modified a little bit and put a coffee on there. But do you guys know who came up with that?
It was there when we got there.
Really?
It was.
Yeah, but when we got there, they didn't have all the patches, team patches.
Right.
We were
Yeah.
just thrown into it. Like when I went to FOB4, we just opened it up, and I walked in the door, and who's here's had combat experience, and was like a stupid idiot. I raised my hand, and well, you're a 1-0, and a team leader, and you have to wait around. I waited around to get a 1-1 and a 1-2, and they took me down to this billets with these guys in Vietnamese and so-called Nungs, and said, "This is your team," and none of them had been trained. So then we were out in the sands there along the beach doing
Yeah.
immediate action drills and hand and arm signals and basic stuff, And it was kind of funny too, because if you run in-country operations, it was like no big deal.
Right. Really?
Which was, yeah. This is where the war is being fought, but we didn't, this is just training to us,
It was.
We'd go out and get in the world of shit in South Vietnam and nobody cared. Everything was across the fence.
Interesting.
And it was really kind of funny. This is my philosophy in spiders too, and some of us old timers been through. They didn't really give a shit what intel we gathered that much.
Really?
They wanted us to put in airstrikes and get the enemy going.
That's what you want. That's what they want.
That's what they. I've been in missions and come back and they never debriefed us.
What?
No shit.
Really?
Never debriefed us. Yeah. And then if you've seen a lot of stuff like the Oscar 8 stuff. They send us to Saigon and show you the real world with the stuff they knew that they wouldn't even tell the recon team. They didn't give us a whole map sheet when we went out.
It'd be just for the target itself.
What?
Be
Yeah.
it 10 by 10,
It was 6x6,
6 by 6, or okay.
grid squares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be strictly your target area.
Yeah.
Right.
And if the helicopter pilots put you in a wrong mountain,
Which
Yeah.
your map,
Which
that
they
little-
always did.
because you want it. So if you got killed, you wanted to have minimal information that would be intel that the enemy could use.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it was a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. I mean, good God, what are we going to tell them? Nomenclature, the M16 rifle?
Right.
Yeah.
But
But I like to back up, like with his situation in '67, they had to train from start. In my case, when I got on Idaho after the team gets wiped out, our little people that had survived were amazing people,
oh yeah, Idaho was a shit for hot team.
and we were one of the teams in camp where they helped us.
Right.
And when the Vietnamese team leader Sal, when I got introduced to the team by Spider, he looked at the interpreter and said, "He's too tall, his feet are too big, and he looks stupid." And it took the interpreter wouldn't tell me for months what he said until we
Yeah.
had until I earned his respect.
Right.
And
Yep.
then the interpreter finally told me what he said, like around Christmas time.
Yeah, Hep was his interpreter.
Hep.
Yeah, he had a pet shop in.
In Houston, after we
Houston?
got out of
Really?
Vietnam. Oh, yeah. And we lost him July 8th, 2 years ago. He passed away. But he was a good interpreter. He spoke 4 languages. He'd been educated in France. He used to correct my English,
Yeah.
Really.
the
Yeah.
interpreter. Yeah, he was really good. And
I was out in Seattle having a pho at this great pho shop, and a guy came in, older Vietnamese gentleman came in, and he's wearing an SF ring, on his finger, and I saw it from across the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I honed in on it, and I picked up my plate and went over and sat, and I was like, "So what's up?" And he's like, "What do you want?" You know. I was like, "Hey, so I'm Evan," you know, and I kind of give my story, and he's like, "Yeah, so you know, he's been in the States for several years, but he had started working as an advisor with special forces in Vietnam, and then eventually what his story he told me was he came to the States and then got into the United States military, and that took him a long time, and I guess he was like got into first group, and eventually he was like a Vietnamese guy that immigrated into the United States that eventually got into the United States military.
Wow.
Did you guys know any of those guys?
No, their kids, a
Yeah.
lot of their kids come in and,
Really?
and went in the service. To tell you the truth, a lot of them went to West Point and stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah,
You
we've
know,
had
so-
our first Vietnamese
You,
generals.
you know
now.
how you've been in Asia. You know how the Asian
Yeah.
culture is. You never just bring discredit on your family.
Yeah.
And most of the guys are military people. Some, like the spa I go to down in Kearns. There's 2 Vietnamese in it, and both of them were Vietnamese soldiers.
Really?
Yeah, and I speak a little Vietnamese, and they were, talking to me and showing me their pictures of the, dragon dances and all this shit. And I says, yeah, buddy, why aren't you still there, But yeah, in Vietnam, in all cultures, you have, you've been in different places, you have tribal problems, and we had it big time in Vietnam because the yards were looked down on as
Yeah.
third-class citizens, and hell, I had yards that I trained case on that were, 3 weeks out of breech cloths and crossbows.
Right.
Now they got Zippo lighters and carrying M16s, and it was.
How were they at throwing hand grenades?
Oh yeah, a great story.
They couldn't.
They couldn't throw?
Well, what happened is, we were going through a basic training unit
Right.
while we're under siege at Quezon, taking, thousands of rounds of artillery, and all we do is running in and out of the bunkers, and beat the rats off. And we're living in a trench line, and the Vietnamese, just like at the NBM food, they dug in on us. The only thing that saved us was tactical error,
Right.
I mean, they put B-52 strikes, so they throw us out of bed at night. New Jersey was firing 16 rounds
Oh yeah.
in there. But anyhow, I said, well, let's find out, how far I have to go with these guys. So I took some M26 hand grenades and took the fuses out of them and stuff. And figured, I didn't want to pull the damn thing and throw it. And I said, let's see how far they can throw it. Well, American kids are brought up
Throwing baseballs and footballs, yeah.
throwing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't. They were hunter-gatherers. And
Yeah.
bing, I think the record was 6 feet. I said, no hand grenades for these guys. They just carry ammo.
Well, yeah, the shrapnel I've carried today is from one of our little people not getting a hand grenade far
Really?
enough out. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, M7.
Your child didn't quite get it far enough. You
I
heard
always
that?
said the only time they were any good was throwing downhill. Never throw
That's
uphill.
true.
So what's this? William Bronson, OG-OSR helicopter pilot assigned to MAC V-SOG 1960, just wrote in. What did he say?
Oh, he was saying that he thoroughly enjoyed his time. He'd do it all again and is eager to get his ordered some MAC V copies so that he
Awesome.
can get it in the mail.
Something came up. Fiona's reminded me to talk about a few things. Like you had a Thanksgiving mission. I think that
That Luke Ryan wrote up. You posted in
yeah,
your.
we posted it in Coffee or Die, which is our blog. We've had a lot of highlighted stories, and we're going to have even more specifically related to Special Forces, MAC V, and Vietnam. But tell us about the Thanksgiving mission, or tell.
Well, the long and the short of it was we got transferred to FOB 6 at Ho Nok Tao, and we were down there, and
That was down the Delta.
Down in the Delta.
right, and that FOB 6 was northwest of Saigon, between Saigon and Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
So we got called in. I'd been in camp for a couple of days, just getting acclimated, and the CO called us in, said, tonight, I got to brief you, we're going to have S3 here, we got a mission tomorrow, and he said, we got 3 NVA divisions that are MIA, the 1st, the 3rd, and the 7th NVA divisions. So I'm going, wait a minute, the CIA and the DIA can't find him? That's our target? So that night, we briefed. The next morning was Thanksgiving Day. So he said to us, when you get to the launch site, because you're running the mission, we'll give you a Thanksgiving Day dinner. And sure enough, we get up to the launch site, the dinner comes in, we have Thanksgiving dinner, get on the Green Hornets, get into the target area, move for an hour or so, and we come into a base camp. The fires are still lit, there's still smoke, and my Sal, his eyes are like this. We don't see any people right away. But the long story was, we were on the ground, we found what we believe to be 2 of the 3 NVA divisions. The point element and the tail element came back. And Cambodia, you could see for hundreds of yards.
Yeah.
And this
Elephant grass.
and so we
Oh,
saw
thanks.
pith helmets, the guys running at port arms, coming to get us. And we called the Green Hornets. At that point in 68, November 68, they had miniguns on their Air Force helicopters.
November
They had the November models, which were a
2
little
inches.
faster.
Right.
We directed airstrikes. As they kept coming at us, we had to go back to the LZ. We were putting down Claymore mines with 5-second fuses to hold them back till we got to the LZ and literally get out. We go back, and the Air Force goes, "Hey, it's Thanksgiving, have a meal." So we have a Thanksgiving dinner. At the end of it, somebody comes in and says, "Hey, your CO wants to see you guys ASAP back at base. What the hell happened?" So we go down and give him a debrief. So at the end of the debrief at 5:30, 6 o'clock, "Hey, you guys, how about a second Thanksgiving meal?" So we went in and had another Thanksgiving meal. So 3 meals in one day. But we just barely got out of there alive because when the chopper pulled us out, as we're leaving, lifting off, the NVA are coming through the jungle, and then they're coming into an open area, and it was wet. And when they're trying to come from port arms down to shoot us and try to stop,
Yeah.
the mud from their boots was going up in the air and hitting the props, the blades on the helicopter, and then we'd hit them. It would be like those old cartoons.
Yeah.
You see somebody and they're running, and then they just stop and go blowing backwards. We blew them literally back into the jungle as we're pulling off. Then I threw down a white phosphorus grenade, and we were briefed beforehand. It said, "Don't use white phosphorus."
Yeah.
2 days later, we're on a target. We're on the ground. We have an ambush set up to blow up a truck to get a POW. In the clear, they said, "Come back. We're pulling you out of the target right now." I said, "Hey, we're set up for the ambush." "No, General Creighton Abrams ordered you back
Yeah.
now." Sihanouk, the Premier Sihanouk from Cambodia, filed a protest
Oh.
about using a white phosphorus grenade. Now, he didn't mind having 100,000 NVA
Right.
training in Cambodia so they could attack our troops, our bases. But the white phosphorus pissed them off a little bit. And they literally pulled us out of the field. And we had a perfect ambush.
Yeah.
Bubba had put in a landmine. We're going to blow the truck up, get a couple of live POWs, get every
You would have got
R&R.
an ARCOM for that.
Maybe. Just another day in SOG. But that was the Thanksgiving Day mission in a
The
nutshell.
thing on Cambodia was crazy. Fubai ran. Yeah, of course, when we were at Kontum, first mission I ever ran was out of Kontum, and they had all these, Mad Dog Schreiber was there, and Fred Saberkowski.
That's FOB2, then later CCC,
Yeah,
it was
and
Kontum.
of course, Howard was the supply sergeant, and he was.
Really?
Yeah, I could tell you stories about Bob over his soul. But anyhow, you go into Cambodia, you could only go with 5 people. Couldn't carry an M79, couldn't take any mines, had no TAC air.
Why?
Because the rules, they made these stupid rules.
of
you know,
engagement.
Who's making these rules?
well, they were negotiating with Sihanouk,
Got it.
who was on both sides of the fence and living in his French villa, you
Yeah.
know. And, they had crazy rules about different target areas and stuff that you couldn't do. Like you ran out of NKP Thailand.
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
you? We had a launch site in Thailand. We ran the backside up by Diem Bien Phu,
Yeah.
across the border. Anyhow, that place was, every place you went, they had different rules. It's like you need an NBA referee with a
Right.
shirt on. You never know. like I got in a world of crap in Cambodia on this mission, and you know, just 5 of us, you know, 1 other American and 3 little people, and they, you know, they were going to kill us. You know, I mean, what the hell am I going to do? Just die here? You
Right.
know? And basically, the only thing that saved us, Fred, got in trouble where he got the Medal of Honor. And they shot down a helicopter and stuff, and they scrambled all kinds of attack air for that. And so I got a hold of this British guy was flying, Covey, I can't think of his name, on the continent. I told him, he said, are you in Laos? And I said, yeah, I wasn't. I was in the tri-border area. I was in Cambodia. That way I could use tack.
Just a little white lie, but it
I
worked.
could use
It saved his ass.
It saved his ass. You know, napalm does stick to people. Napalm the shit out of the place. And the only reason I got out, I lied. I learned how to lie good and SOG. You know,
Indeed, indeed.
You know, I learned how to lie, yeah. Oh, I'm surrounded. I need a prayer for emergency.
Oh yeah.
That was our thing, you know. You hollered for a prayer for emergency, you got the world.
Well, was it like one of the things that I've often wondered is how often were you guys going out? You know, when you're in country, because typically, how long was a tour when you guys were with SOG?
Well, the tour of duty was a year.
1 year.
If it
And-
lasted that
And
long.
yeah, if you
Last-
last that long. And then you had the option, after you've been running for 6 months, you had the option of applying for another job, or you could volunteer for something else.
Got it.
And but like, and it would depend on how many teams were available. So by November, well, in May when I arrived, there's a roster. There's 30 recon teams at FOB1. Not all were actually capable.
We're lucky to have
Idaho
10.
had been wiped out.
Yeah.
Some were sick. We had ST Alabama where everybody was killed except the 1-0, John Allen.
John.
Allen A&E'd for 2 or 3 days and got picked up near the Ashall. And we had several teams that were literally wiped out, either just disappeared or we knew that they had been wiped out during the course of the extraction.
That's good for morale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when I arrived there in May of '68, it was all these death and teams missing. So I became the team leader at the end of October. And November, before we went down to Honaktau and we came back in December, at one point I went in on that team roster. Idaho was the only team capable of running a mission then. So in the morning, we would go out to a primary, go across the fence into Laos, get shot out of the primary,
Go to
secondary, and then the alternate LZs, come back, have lunch, here's a new target, jump on the choppers, go back and get shot out. And this happened for several times over time. Then we'd find some teams that come back.
Right.
But so technically you were running the mission for 5 days, you had 5 days of well, we had none of that.
Right.
Well, another thing too is that they overused the guys. You know, we had what we call active teams that would go. It was like Troll and Tucker.
Oh, yeah.
Those poor guys, man. They were. You had a lot of teams who were in stand down constantly for some reason or another, and it was the headquarters' fault. They knew who the good people were. The people who would
Right.
go, and they, usually they go till they disappeared or got killed or so shot up. Idaho was one of them, and that's one of the shit for hot teams. They had all the 1-0s on that team are my buddies, friends of mine. They were, here's a good, and I don't want to, being a sergeant major, I don't give a shit what Till thinks about me, but to be truthful, he's one of these kind of guys that is a legend in SOG and never got what is really due to him. Now,
Right.
he's not the Lone Ranger. There's a bunch of these guys, but he was constantly going because he would, And I don't know if he had a death wish or what it was, or he's from New Jersey. So.
Just young and dumb.
Yeah, and that's part of it too.
Oh, yeah.
Young guys
Young,
get
dumb.
this invisible. I talked to enough Marines that were on Iwo Jima, and they thought they were bulletproof.
Yeah.
Until
Until
people
they weren't.
started dying around them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden reality hits you.
Well, and like we weren't the only active base. I mean, you had Khartoum where guys were getting whacked like
Oh.
Howard, and then May of '68 down south, Roy Benavides was down there,
yeah.
and Roy was there. TDY, he just came into camp. He knew a recon team that went out, and that recon team mission was to go capture and drive back to Vietnam a Russian truck. They wanted to prove that the Russians were there, and they figured, oh, go out. Well, they went out and landed in a battalion base camp. They went in with a heavy recon team. They got whacked.
14 people is heavy.
Yeah, and I forget exactly how many, but while they're on the ground, several helicopters are shot down. So you have all this pandemonium. Roy Benavides is there, and a helicopter comes back from the LZ, the target area, and they're turning around to go back with ammo. Roy jumps on with his medic bag, forgot his M16 because he knew the guys on the ground.
Right.
And when he gets there, he jumps off the helicopter. He's running to the first guy. He's wounded 3 times en route to helping the first Green Beret. He was on the ground several hours. He was stabbed multiple times, shot, shrapnel. I forget how many bullet wounds.
Put him in the body bag.
At the end, when he comes back, he's carrying the last guy. After he had a hand-to-hand with the NVA who cut open his guts, he's holding his guts with one hand and the American soldier on the other, throws him in the helicopter, crawls in, and leaves. He was such bad shape, they put him in a body bag.
Yeah.
And when they're back at the Loc Ninh,
Yeah, lots
Loc-
of Loc Ninh.
say again?
Loc Ninh.
Yeah, Loc Ninh. There's an A camp there that had been
was a
under
lodge.
siege earlier.
Yeah, that was a lodge site.
And they're going through the body bags, and somebody, before they zip them up, they had a medic or a doctor, somebody, and a friend of mine, Lee Martin, was an SF medic. He was there with the doctor looking at each one. When they came to Roy Benavides, he had so much blood and mud and just general dirt. He looked like he's dead, and he couldn't move, but he moved his tongue. They saw his tongue move, or his eyes. And they said, wait a minute, he's alive. They pulled him out of the body bag. And that's Roy Benavides, who did
Yeah.
get the medal of honor.
Yeah,
But it took Roy how many years? 10 years to get his
He had
medal
the
of honor.
DSC.
He had the DSC first.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
So that was May 68, and this is down south.
Right.
So Cambodia, there were some nasty missions there. I mean, my high school quarterback from Trenton High School, Hal Krosky, was KIA in February of 69 in Cambodia. So we had 5 guys from Trenton that ran missions with SOG. And my high school quarterback was KIA.
Did you graduate with that guy and then join the army?
No,
with him, or was it-
we played football together. My senior year, he was the junior quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year, he was the starter. And by that time, I was at Trenton State College trying to flunk out.
So when you guys, so you spent 15 years in SF, and so after Vietnam, what did your career look like after Vietnam?
Peacetime armies are not fun.
Sucks.
Yeah, all of us, and it was really bad in those days too because there was this stigma of us being special, and a big green machine don't
Yeah.
like special people. The Marines went through that stuff. Disbanded the Raiders after World
Yep.
War I because they didn't want, they want everybody to be a Marine.
Right.
The Raiders.
Yeah, Marine Raiders, which
Yeah.
was their parachute unit
Sure,
in the
yeah.
Pacific. They disbanded. They're reorganizing them now because they found out they need, guys that will do that kind of stuff. No mission too high, no sky too high, no ocean too deep. Dive, type of stuff. But it was, we went through. You go through periods of do they need you? Periods, and we still running, like we still running these little missions. Like I was assigned to the British SAS.
Oh, you did
at
that?
Hereford College.
Yeah.
For me and Tommy Shook. And
What year was that?
This was in '72,
Okay.
right after
Wow.
I come back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
They decided we needed to go put up with these.
What year did
Yeah,
Beckwith do that with those guys? Do you remember? Was that?
Charlie?
Yeah.
He's a Delta guy.
Yeah, but he did that SAS.
Oh
trip
yeah,
too,
we
right?
yeah.
Was
See
it
what they was. They
before?
had this working relationship with the 10th Group
Uh huh.
and Batos, and they used to send you know, kind of like, you know, go find out what these guys are doing.
Right.
It was so funny about the SAS too. They're still carrying FM rifles from
Yeah.
this bullshit. And they, you know, we went into this deal in Malaysia that I'm not supposed to talk about, but what the hell? All of a sudden the M16s come out and all that stuff. They, you know, they keep that stuff, you know, all the American equipment.
Yeah.
You know, they don't like to be told that they got to. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in the SAS, you know, they were just a group of all over the place, guys out there in the formation with fuzzy hats and different color berets. And I'm from the King's Only rifles of Devonshire or something like this, and they just congregate them together and train them. And they're good, you know. These guys are shit for hot. But anyhow, they start their day off in a pub. Just playing darts, you know, this shit. You know, I went, so me and Shook's down in this pub with these guys. There's their pub there in Hereford Commons. And this old guy sitting up at the bar, and he looks like Andy Cap. Remember the cartoon Andy Cap? He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, the hat. He's looking over there at this, and he says, "Hey, you're a Yank, aren't you?" I said, "Well, that's what the fuck it says here." And all these guys in the SAS like, "Oh, Sergeant Watkins is going to ring his bell." And Shook's kind of grabbed me. And he says, "You know what's wrong with you Yanks?" And I went, "Oh, no, here we go." And I says, "No, bud." What's wrong? What's wrong? He said, "You're not a pure blood." And I sat there and thought of it, and I said, "You're right. But we whipped your ass in 2 wars and dug you out of 2 others. What do you think I'm doing here right now?" All these SAS guys were laying on the floor because most of them are Scottish and, and Irish and stuff. There's a few guys from Brits, but most of them are Scots and Irish guys.
Yeah.
Because they were running operations with Irish Republican Army.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Shit in those days.
I was working with those guys up in northern Iraq, and we had a party one night at one of our, like a get together. And we ended up, the evening ended up ending in like a fairly good fight, basically, between us and the SAS. And it was all like provoked by us. It was just fucking horrible, you know. And it was so funny because they left and everybody's kind of bruised and beaten up a little bit. And they came back the next day and they're like, "Mates, that was the greatest night we've had." You know? They were so excited.
Yeah,
they were like, "This is so awesome!
Yeah.
You guys are so much fun."
Yeah.
We were like, "Man, we thought you guys were never going to come back." And they're like, "Let's do it every Friday," you know, or whatever it was. And
Yeah, the one thing, the Brits love to fight, man.
Yeah, they're good for it.
They don't think it's any fun of drinking, and it's any fun if there are a few blows drawn.
Yeah, if you're not drinking and fighting, it's kind of like you're not doing the 2 things that are fun for them.
We
And
were
I thought-
in Malaysia going through the jungle warfare school down there, and they had Gurks, you know, they were training, the Gurks were training. And that's kind of like their mountain yards. You know, they were really good. And I'll never forget this. We're out on their grinder standing out there in formation. And all of a sudden, everybody gets quiet, and I looked up, and here comes a regimental sergeant major. He's got his swagger stick in here, trotting out there. And he looks around. He said, "Why in the fuck are 2 guys in fucking barracks?" And everybody just ran to the barracks, and the SF guys are all looking around. "What the hell is that?" And this one guy ran, "That's a regimental sergeant major. He fought World War II. He fought," and he started all the shit that guy fought in. I went, "I guess I'll go to the barracks, man." Let's go. At the SAS, they're not happy unless they're in a brawl. And when they deploy, they take their beer and liquor ration with them. I got this. They call them C-130s. They call them Hercules.
Right.
Yeah, Hercules. They faked us out on the first jump we made with them too. They jump at 600 feet and they didn't tell us. all of us are riding our rucksacks.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh.
They all kind of grinning when we were at there, turning in our chutes. And we're jumping their chutes. They had PX, they called them PX chutes. They were great big son of a bitches. And they just took you where they wanted to go, you know. But it was, yeah, they're not happy unless they're fighting or telling a joke on each other.
Wait, what year did you get out then?
I got out in 80,
80? And then you're in Utah? How long have you been in Utah?
since 80.
Really?
I mean, 70, I got it, I was in ROTC. They had SF guys teaching what they called adventure training, but basically we did, you know, ran the Green River and RB-15s and stuff like that, and took them up, you know, we climbed, you know, Mountain Dew rappelling,
Right.
all this shit. And I had what they called the Ute Scouts, was their kind of junior ranger course. You know,
Right.
I had 3 ranger slots a year, or I could send guys to
Oh, that's
ranger
cool.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny because some of the kids I put through ROTC, 2 of them made general,
Really?
which is pretty hard ROTC.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to this day, that was some of the best times I had was in ROTC because you felt like you were, you know, developing people and doing stuff. But
The SF mission training.
yeah, yeah. I taught, and then I taught a university class in orienteering and land navigation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, Department of Leisure Studies.
Here at the U and
Yeah, I got my degree from the U.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all of us guys. Yeah, and then I went to work.
You finally got educated.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
So did you get out as a sergeant major then?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, it was kind of funny too. I got here and we had a assignment branch, enlisted assignment branch, was run by a lady called Mrs. Alexander. She's famous in Special Forces.
Oh yeah.
She could make you or break you. 'Cause
Right.
She could send you wherever you wanted to go. Not the one of me and Fred Zabakowski and Joe Alderman, who's in the Ranger Hall of Fame, and Donald Longstreet in Owen High School.
Right, sure.
We were in Holliburg in Maryland in those days before. Tell you the truth, John Dean was in there. They had him locked up in there because he was Ranger School. So anyhow, we're down there and I get this, somebody waking me up at night and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I look up and this kid's got this helmet liner on that says, Officer Today on the helmet liner. He says, are you Sergeant Watkins? And I said, yeah. You got to come to the guard shack with me. And I went, what the hell? So I get up and I started leaving. Alderman says, yeah, Joe says, what's going on? I said, I don't know. They want me to the guard shack. And he says, one of your guys is down there and we don't know what to do with him. So Longstreet gets up too, so we trot down the guard shack. Fred's down there, right? And he says, I said, what's going on? He says, I want him to fall out the guard. I want to inspect him. He had the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And this lieutenant, the second John, said there, I don't know what to do with him, Sergeant. And I said, we'll take him back. He said, who is he? I said, well, that's Fred Zabakowski. He says he got the Medal of Honor. And I said, yeah, a couple of silver stars. What the hell? He'd been down in Dungda district drinking with the guys. You know. Fred, what a work of art.
Oh yeah.
And
One of our
you're
heroes.
you're in San Diego.
Yeah.
And-
Oceanside now.
Okay. And then when'd you get out?
I was only in for 3.5 years. I extended. In fact, when I was at 10th group,
Yep.
hated it so much. I went down to the Pentagon, saw Mrs. Alexander. You had to bring her flowers and a certain wine.
Yeah.
So I had that. I drove all night, get to the Pentagon. Just back then, there's no guard. Just walk in, got her desk, gave her the flowers, gave her the bottle
Yeah.
of wine. Said, "Can you get me back on my recon team?" She goes, "You have to extend." So I extended 6 months. Went to the car, slept, came back in the afternoon. My orders were there. Went back, cleared base that Friday. The MPs came on Monday. We had a couple of bar fights. And so went back to Vietnam, got on my old recon team back in October of '69.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
so
then-
Billy was there. So I got out of the Army in April of '70.
Okay.
Then went back to school for a few years, and then got involved with the school newspaper, worked at the Trenton Times for 10 years, came to San Diego,
San Diego Union.
with the San Diego Union. It was there for 8 years, and then they had a local paper up in Oceanside. So I started work there in October, met my now wife in December.
Best thing that happened to your dad.
Absolutely, man.
You
This
needed adult
is December
leadership.
'93. Worked there until '08, and then since then I've worked in a couple of nonprofits that help veterans get affordable housing and other programs
This
like
is
that.
a tilt's a going concern. He never stops. I don't think he'll ever retire. He can't retire. He keeps
Got to
having
keep working, man.
got these kids.
We're just
and-
lucky, glad to be able to do so. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and last Saturday we had our first grandson.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So that's all good news. Another one's en route, another grandchild. So we just continue to march
Well, I think
and
you
drink
know,
coffee.
Well, and drink coffee. You know, if you guys check out Across the Fence, I haven't read it yet, but I'm gonna plug it. And,
You got to wear a
I'll
flak
give you
jacket
guys.
and a helmet when you wear that thing.
I'll give you guys an update to what I think, and then other books that you guys or authors that you would recommend for people that are interested
Tilt's
in
written
unpacking it.
3 or 4 books.
Exactly.
Well, we got 3.
Which
It's
ones?
On the Ground, then the SOG Chronicles.
Yep.
But you have Nick Brockhausen,
Yeah,
We
Nick.
Few. He just come out with
Yeah,
another
Nick.
follow-up.
He's a former Marine too. Nick is.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was in Vietnam. in the Marine Corps.
And he writes from a stream of consciousness. Lynn Black did a book, WTF, which is his stream of consciousness. It was just
Really?
another style of writing.
Right.
And of course, John Plaster's the godfather. He did his first SOG books.
And Dave.
And then you have
Dave Meyer.
Dave Maurer did a book called The Dying Place. And the first page, he opens up with, he's got his Car 15 pointed at an NVA's head. And he just takes you right through. It's just a great book.
Wow.
And Uncommon Valor by Steve Moore is out.
Yep.
And he basically went through, he's young by our standards. And his uncle was George Hunt
Yeah, it was all Pontoon guys.
out of Khartoum, all Khartoum. And and then of course with SOG Chronicles, that's the story. The centerpiece there is Operation Tailwind,
Yep.
where after Sihanouk was ousted, the communists were moving south into Cambodia to take it over, and the CIA had an operation, and they were fighting the NVA, and they're up against it. They said, we need relief, so they put a hatchet force in, 16 Green Berets, 120 in Dij.
Wow.
They get inserted September, I think it was like the 9th
Ninth.
or 10th. They're on the ground for 4 days and 4 nights, but they kept moving every day. And even when they're getting inserted, they picked up 3 casualties and left them on the helicopters that took them in. They're on the ground, they move. On day 4, they were going to extract the wounded. And the cubby told them the weather's closing in and there's thousands of NVA coming. So they got him out. The last helicopter out, as it's taking off, it gets hit with the anti-aircraft fire or some kind of a weapon.
RPG.
An RPG. And one of the door gunners, it's a Marine CH-53 Sea Stallion, the Delta model. As it's taking off, one of the door gunners gets shot in the neck. The Green Beret medic, Gary Mike Rose, tends this guy, keeps him alive. As they're going over the first hill, one engine goes out. It's a 2-engine helicopter. They barely get over the second mountain, and that engine goes out. So now the pilot has a helicopter full of Indij, our troops, including all the intel that they gathered
Right.
from a couple of the sites, and he auto-rotates in, and when they crash land, the landing was so impactful that the team leader, then Captain Gene McCarley, crushed his teeth on impact, gets ejected from the helicopter, and Rose gets ejected from the helicopter, and they came back and finally pulled him out. Mike Rose got the Medal of Honor October 23rd.
His DSC was upgraded.
His DSC was upgraded to a Medal of Honor, which President Trump awarded
Right.
October 23rd,
The only reason he got it,
2017.
CNN did that deal with they used gas.
Well-
They claimed they used gas.
What happened was that mission was run in 70. The Communist News Network in 98 broadcast a story saying that we had used poisonous gas,
Nerve gas.
because they had Americans, that dissenters, and they sent the Green Berets in to get the dissenters, and while they were there, they killed women and children, of course. Any good Communist News Network would always distort the story that way. Well, everything about it was wrong, including the gas.
Right.
And the type of gas they alleged that was used was in 3 locations in the world for the U.S., all in the States, and one was in the Philippines. So the whole story was wrong.
One of them was in Dugway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as a result of that, there's litigation, suits were against CNN. Ted Turner wrote a letter to the commander and never wrote a letter to anybody else, just to the commander, apologizing for the bad story. And there were court settlements, but nothing, a lot of it became public. So that's why in my 3rd book I did the story about the mission, which was incredible. Out of the 16 Green Berets, there were 32 Purple Hearts on that mission alone. Over 70% of the indigs were wounded. Mike Rose kept all of them alive.
Yeah.
And there were
And
3
we
that were
went to his
seriously
Medal of
wounded.
Honor.
And he was wounded. He was wounded the first night.
Right.
And to this day, he can't move his hand the correct way from his wound. And he attended to everybody. And his car 15 he used as a crutch when they moved. Because they moved day and night, had Spectre at night,
Right.
and they killed thousands of NVA on that mission.
Well, tactical air.
Oh, TAC air. And our guys killed a couple on the ground.
Right.
So anyway, before we leave though, Pat and I had this made up.
Oh, this
We
is
want to
great.
give you a special plaque from us to you, sir.
This is awesome.
So this has a SOG patch on it.
Yeah.
This has a personal coin from our
Idaho?
Idaho, the 5th flash that we had from Vietnam, and of course all the special forces.
This is really cool.
It's a picture of our recon team. It's
Yeah.
the same picture from the book Across the Fence. For you, saying thank you for what you've done here with your coffee, and we appreciate it.
You know, mostly you following up on our history. You know, we appreciate that as old warriors. I'm 81 years old, and I'm
You're 81?
Yeah,
Man, you look great.
yeah,
Still goes to football games
Not-
at night in the cold.
yeah. You got to work out.
I think it's important. I mean, just like on a personal note, you know, I can't keep this up, but
Here's
thank you very much, sir. I think on a personal note, from my perspective, thank you very much. On a personal note, everyone, you know, it's important for as soldiers, as you know, soldiers, sailors, airmen. It's important to know where we came from, and I think, you know, the last several years, America has really been consumed with the post 9/11 veteran, right? The
Yeah.
service to our country, the service to our country, and the post 9/11 veteran, and it's really important for us to pay respect to the people that were here before us, that served the country just as honorably, and put their lives on the line, and all the men that didn't come home. You know, I think that that's the most important aspect from our job here at Black Rifle Coffee. It's to show people the love for your country and the people that have dedicated so much to include life, limb, and eyesight. You know, that's just it's a big part of our history as soldiers, American service members. It really is. And we roast coffee now, right? That's what I do. But what I try to do every day is pay respect to the guys, you know, my friends that didn't make it out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and then my extended family, to the soldiers that really didn't make it home. People, if we forget our past, we're going to have a rough
Yep.
future.
Amen.
So
And
thank
this
you,
plaque
guys.
was even made by a Green Beret.
Really?
Yeah, first
awesome.
group, John Joyce, Excalibur out of Las Vegas.
Yeah,
All the medals and everything he designs personally. So, hoorah.
Hoorah.
yeah.
Thank
They're
you
on my
very much.
car out there. You go out my car, it looks like an advertisement. for Special
Really?
Forces.
This is awesome. This will go right above
He
my
designs
desk.
all these by
This
himself.
is really cool.
Yes.
So thanks a lot, everybody, for
Till
tuning
next
in.
time, we'll
Till
be
next
back.
time, please do.
And
Cool.
thanks for the coffee.
Yeah, of course. You didn't get any, but I'll make you a cup.
We'll make coffee.
I'm not
You're
old
not in a
enough.
hurry,
You
right?
don't drink any?